And now, the lowdown with economist and political strategist Elson Lowe.
Good evening, and welcome to the lowdown. Welcome to the lowdown. First of all, we apologize for being a few minutes late. Good to have you on. Good to be here with you guys tonight. It's going to be another fun, interesting show. Tonight, we're going to be talking about gasoline and talking a bit about the high prices that we've seen and what the future may look like for gasoline. We'll also give you gasoline prices. We'll also give you a sense of the history of high oil prices and how that has impacted economies. So it's going to be a gasoline-oriented show. Folks, share the live, share that live. Let's try and get everyone in. Let's give everyone an opportunity to hang out with us tonight. You know that on Saturday nights, you start your Saturday night on a high with Elson Lowe. So let's bring everyone in. We always have a few laughs for you every night. We have a few laughs for you. Tonight we're actually going to be speaking with the chairman of the PNCR, Mr. Sherwin Holder. We're also going to be speaking with Mr. Kiwe Copeland, who is the representative of the GYSM, the steering representative of the GYSM right now, and we're going to be having a discussion on a couple of issues, one of whom is, of course, going to be the cost of living. Gasoline prices are tied to the cost of living, and that's a debate that we want to ensure that the information there comes out to the public, because there's sort of not quite an understanding that gasoline is really tied to cost of living, both directly through the price that you pay at the pump and through the effect that it has on other goods. Share the link, folks. Share the link. Let's try and get everyone in tonight. We've got an interesting show for you tonight. We've got a show that's going to give you some insights into what's going on with gas, into what you should expect from gasoline prices going forward, what some of the risks are, what some of the concerns are in the economics community regarding higher gas prices. Now, we've already seen very high gas prices, but there's risk that we may see even higher gas prices over the course of the year, especially over the course of the summer. So that's something that we'll chat a little bit about. Of course, you know, I always try to give our younger viewers, as well as any of viewers that are interested, some tips, some advice on how to position yourself given all the changes. We'll give you a few quick tips on how you can save on gasoline and what are some mechanisms that people use to save on gasoline. So that's something that we'll throw out. I'm sure that you viewers have your own solutions, your own thoughts on how to save during this time of very high oil prices. The oil price last time I checked was $110 a barrel for crude. So a little bit down from the $120 a barrel that it was recently, and it was also $124 a barrel recently. So very high levels of oil price, absolutely. So we're going to chat a little about all of these things. I remind you, viewers, that you should check that oil price every time you get a chance. It gives you a sense of how things are moving in the country, of the direction things are going. I'll remind you again, viewers, that when Guyana's GDP estimate was first drawn up, coming on to about 50% growth we were expecting, the oil price was only at $74 a barrel. It has since grown very substantially above that rate, very substantially. And as a result of that, we're going to see Guyana grow even faster. We're going to see Guyana expand, Guyana's economy expand even faster. Why? Because we're a producer of oil. We are a producer of crude oil. So did you know that we produce crude oil here in Guyana? Because some politicians would want you to, some political parties rather, would want you to believe that we here in Guyana won't produce a drop of oil, and that as a result of that, you shouldn't see any of those benefits right now of producing oil, and more broadly, shouldn't see any of those benefits in the future, or at least not for many years. So we'll dispel some of those myths. We'll dispel some of those myths tonight. One thing that's interesting, just to kind of get the ball rolling here, viewers, is that we've recently heard that Guyana's next oil lift may actually bring in $120 a barrel. That may be the price that it's sold at. So if it's a million, you're talking about a million barrels in that lift. You're talking about 120 million US. That's a serious chunk of change, viewers. That is a serious chunk of change. It could have been 74 million US if the oil price was lower. But no, it's going to be 120 million US. And there's a possibility that we're looking at oil prices that will go as high as $150 a barrel. Some reports even put it as high as $185 a barrel. That's not me saying that, viewers. That is JP Morgan saying that. JP Morgan is projecting that there's anxiety that we're going to get all the way up to $185 a barrel. Of course, I don't think that that's where we're headed, or at least I would surely hope that that's not where we're headed for the sake of the consumer. But we in the PNCR have proposed this solution regarding these higher oil prices. And given that we've proposed that solution, this is really going to provide great assistance to the average Guyanese if the oil price does go higher, because there is a real risk that it could go higher. There's a real risk that there will be a recession in the non-oil economy if we see a prolonged period with a higher oil price. So these are all things that are very concerning for many Guyanese, and concerning for people in the entire international economic community that's looking at these issues. But we're going to start you off with some memes of the week. We always like to bring in some memes that Guyanese throw out there. So some Guyanese have mentioned that the cost of living is biting so much that simple things like the cost of fish and chips, the price of getting some fish and chips has gone up so much that it has reached an absurd level. So we at a sec will throw up some of those memes regarding the fish and chips economy, how the price of fish and chips has gone way through the roof. So people are complaining bitterly. We've seen, I believe, our fellow commentator. There we go. Fish and chips gone past 1,600. The person says, "Nah, man, can't take it. Gotta eat something else." But unfortunately, our options are limited. If you look at KFC recently, I believe their Zinger box has generated some degree of controversy or interest, at least, where it's gone up to $1,700 for the Zinger box. That's created a lot of news and media attention. So fish and chips is one thing that's gone up. We've also seen someone also mentioned, I believe there's more than one mention of fish and chips. Let's see if we can get the other mention of up there, where someone is saying that fish and chips is so high that they're ready for the rapture. For those of you who don't know, the rapture is the end of the world, when all good Christians will be taken to heaven. So the person is saying that the fish and chip price is so high that they're ready to be raptured and taken to the great beyond. That's how bad these cost of living woes have gotten. So, again, it will always put a humorous spin on the most dire of situations. A humorous spin. So that's what's going on. Person says he's ready to move on. Fish and chips price is too much for him. He can't take it. So that's one element. But what we also want to do over the course of the night is to help you viewers to get a sense of the ways that the oil price, is linked to the prices of many other goods. And as a result of it being linked to the prices of many other goods, our proposal we put forward to lower gas prices will actually have a broader effect on many goods in the economy, many goods. And so it is really a way to fight the cost of living crisis holistically across many different avenues. So for viewers who may not be familiar with the policy, essentially what we're saying is that the government should compensate suppliers for the higher oil prices so that they can pass on lower oil prices to consumers. What does that mean? It means that in the course of importation of oil, we have a sense of what oil imports will cost when oil is, let's say, at $100 a barrel. And so whenever oil is above $100 a barrel, you would just compensate those suppliers for the difference so that they can pass on the lower price at the pump that is associated with $100 barrel oil. Of course, you can work that out, and that will create reduce the price at the pump for a wide cross section of society. But for many people who really are suffering from these higher oil prices and paying very severe very severe cost of living price due to having higher oil prices, we've seen the PUP, we've seen the PUP attack this policy as difficult to implement or impossible to implement. But viewers, when a particular group finds that your policy makes sense and it's difficult to attack it based on the concept, based on the idea, it is very easy. It is very easy to say that it can't be implemented. That could mean anything. I have just demonstrated to you how easy it is to implement something like that. It's very straightforward. But the PvP has to say something to attack the idea, and that's what they've chosen to say. Obviously, that doesn't really serve as an effective criticism. The other thing they like to do, PvP likes to do, is to call names and so on, say that it's a this type of policy, that type of policy. The expression used is cake shop. Viewers, there are many countries, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Many countries that produce oil and gas products and subsidize the cost of the gasoline locally at the pump. There are many countries that do this. So while the PvP might like to make it seem like this is a novel and strange idea, that is the opposite of that. That opinion is not connected to reality, number one. And then number two, we already have a policy in place called the excise tax policy, where we lower the excise tax as gasoline prices rise. Why do we do this? We do this to help to stabilize the price. We do this to help to ensure that we have a system or a situation where prices do not spike considerably on consumers as well as on businesses, but there's some degree of stability. So we already have a mechanism in place. What we're saying is you extend that mechanism to times when the oil price is especially high. This is, of course, one of those times when we're seeing some of the highest prices on record. You want to extend that policy through to this time. We've seen the government come out and say that nothing else can be done. They've already reduced the excise tax to zero gradually, so nothing else can be done. We disagree with that notion. We believe that there are things that can be done. We believe that it is obvious that Guyana is benefiting greatly from higher oil prices as a producer, and therefore that we should actually use some of that surplus to fund these types of mechanisms that will reduce the cost to consumers. It doesn't make any sense that we as a country benefit substantially, we as the government benefits substantially from a huge jump in the price of oil, and then the ordinary citizen has to face the brunt of that. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you want that to happen? This is a price that no one really anticipated. It's in the back of a conflict, of a war. And so we want to ensure that our citizens do not face the brunt of that. Let's recall, fellow Guyanese, that there was a time when Guyana did not produce oil, not so long ago, when we faced high prices, not so long ago. But we weren't able to do much more other than the excise tax because we weren't benefiting from this spike in prices. Now we're benefiting. So we need to understand that we're in a better place, and it shouldn't be that citizens are worse off or suffering when we are in a better place, when we're seeing progress in our country. That is the opposite of what you should anticipate as your country moves forward. However, that is the reality under the government currently, where they're saying nothing more can be done. Now, there is a real risk that oil prices will go up even further. As the summer rolls on, this is when people travel the most, so that's when oil demand is highest. The higher demand can drive up the price of oil. So there's a real risk of that now. And the negative, of course, being that if the government says nothing more can be done, then just as much as the country is making getting a huge benefit from higher prices, that's not going to be something that you as a consumer benefit from. Sad to say, that's not going to be something that you as a consumer benefit from. In fact, we've got, and I'll see if we can bring up the slide there with the Mexican Minister of Finance, who's, you got a picture of the Mexican Minister of Finance who's talking about, or one of the ministers of finance who's talking about their plan. So they are indicating that they're going to use the surplus that they're benefiting from with these higher prices to fund the subsidy program to keep prices relatively low and stable within their country. So you're hearing from the PDP that, oh, this is crazy, this can't be done, this is unusual, whereas you're seeing other oil producers do precisely what it is that we are saying. So let's operate from the assumption that the the idea that this is sometimes something strange or unusual or impossible to implement is not an idea that we should keep in mind. Let's cast that aside. Let's pretend and ignore that particular line of argument as it does not bear any resemblance with reality. So from that's one thing that we want to express. But higher oil prices is not something that we're only seeing now. We've seen this at various stages in history, and actually, well, this is something that has impacted Guyana and impacted the world before. In fact, we saw during the Yom Kippur War, that's the first time that we had a real oil price shock. Some of you who have longer memories than I may have been around for that particular event. But that actually is a situation where you saw the price of oil really quadruple, really go up from $3 a barrel to $12 per. Actually, that's not quite right. But you saw a price increase from $17 to $61 per barrel. That's the price increase that you saw. If you think about it in terms of 2018 dollars, if you think about it in terms of modern numbers, it's the equivalent of seeing a price jump from $17 to $61 a barrel. So that's a very big jump in a very short space of time. That's essentially what you saw, a very big jump in a very, very short space of time. And of course, that caused severe economic consequences. In fact, it actually created the steepest economic contraction that was seen in Western nations since the Great Depression. So very severe economic contraction. In fact, I had a professor who described it to me as being as if you felt like you could not breathe. So it was a very difficult time. It was a very difficult time. Guyana, of course, was not a producer of oil at the time, and so it caused very severe economic problems here at home, because we could suddenly not afford our oil imports, whereas before they were quite reasonable. On the flip side, and this is some of what is so interesting about all of this, on the flip side, you saw that the oil-producing countries were able to benefit hugely. They became quite wealthy because of these oil price changes, and what you saw is your Saudi Arabias of the world and so on. They really did quite well. In fact, just a random search on this issue, you can look it up yourself. It's out there in the public domain. But one quote is that it had a dramatic effect on oil exporting nations who began to accumulate vast wealth. So a high oil price allowed the vast accumulation of resources. So it would seem that, as a result of this oil price spike, we're getting some more dollars in here in Guyana. Now, again, let's recall that a lot of the estimates for Guyana's economy were drawn up with a $74 barrel price in mind. But now we're looking at 110, 120, 125, potentially going higher than that. And viewers, I submit to you that that's a lot higher than $74 a barrel. So the same effect is happening where a lot of wealth, a lot of money is being accumulated in the country as a result of this shock. But on the flip side, are we seeing the government really roll that out to benefit citizens, or is it that citizens are going to face these higher prices now and in the future if the prices go up? If the government says nothing can be done, doesn't that mean that they expect that citizens will have to bear that brunt and they're not going to do anything? They could have said we'll take into consideration some ideas. They could have said we'll make some changes as we monitor the oil price. That's not what the government said. The government said that nothing more can be done. That is a sad, sad state of affairs. Sad state of affairs. Now, we're hearing from other finance ministers, the French finance ministers come out to say, this is Bruno Le Maire, has come out to say that Russia's invasion of Ukraine and subsequent sanctions on crude will send prices to record highs not seen since the OPEC embargo in the 1973 conflict. So the Yom Kippur War, the first oil shock, where you saw a really sharp increase in prices as a result of a war. We're seeing that effect again, according to the French finance minister. And so he believes that the current energy crisis is comparable in intensity, in brutality to the oil shock of 1973. This is something that he's come out to say. So this is a really difficult period. This is a really difficult period. We're seeing some of the highest prices. There are only a few times, in fact, we've seen oil prices on average over the course of a year exceed the levels that we've seen in the recent history. You've only seen that in 2008, just before the recession. And we'll have a quick chat about recession in just a few seconds, viewers. But you also saw that from 2011 to 2014 when there were very relatively high oil prices. We haven't really seen this level, these high prices since then, however. So now we're seeing it, and we haven't seen it for sustained periods of time. The real risk that comes from an oil price shock is when that oil price shock lasts over a sustained period of time. What does that mean? That means that for several months, you have a substantial oil price shock. And that carries real risks for the economy, for the non-oil economy here in Guyana. Of course, the oil economy will do well. But the non-oil economy, which actually relies on, in many ways, gasoline to function, whether that's transportation, GPL, so on and so forth, that can face some serious issues. Now, to help you to understand the worry that economists have, I'll give it to you in a simple way. Let us imagine that you and your family are thinking of going out to see a movie and get something to eat. But because of higher gasoline prices, you say to yourself, okay, we're not going to do that this week. We'll do it next week, and we'll just do it a little less frequently than we would have otherwise. What that means is that you're going to spend less money than you would have been spending in the economy. That means that the businesses that you would have been spending that money at are going to have less profit than they would otherwise have had. That means that they may not be able to support as many workers as they otherwise might have had. So they may lay off some workers. Now, when they lay off those workers were going to take funds and go and spend that in the economy. And so what you have is the same thing, the same effect building, where a slowdown that is prompted from higher gas prices can ripple through the economy and cause job losses and cause further slowdowns, which cause further job losses, which cause further slowdowns. And this is how you end up in a recession. And some of you may say, oh, talking about a recession is a crazy thing to say. Look how well things are going in Guyana. But the United States is already incredibly worried that they've slipped into a recession, or that they're slipping into a recession. If you have more than one quarter, so more than 1 3-month period where you've contracted, your economy has contracted, that's generally when you're thought to be in a recession. And that's the anxiety. What happens in a recession? People lose their jobs, people are fired, the unemployment rate goes up, and so on. The anxiety with oil prices is that as they get closer to $130 a barrel, we will be coming closer and closer to starting to see the economy slow down and then potentially contract. And in fact, if we get to $150 a barrel, and so that what you've got on screen here, viewers, is an anxiety that there's a 40% chance of a recession coming up. This is not Elson saying this. This is an international institution that's saying this, a large bank, I believe, that's saying this. So this is not just off the top of our heads, but it's a concern internationally. as you see higher oil prices. Of course, in 2008, when we saw some of the highest prices, we faced a very sharp and serious recession. So that is really the concern right now. The higher oil price is going to create or create the conditions that lead to a recession. Now, that is one important element of this, but another important element we want to note is that oil prices are affected across a wide range of goods. And this is why we believe that you can actually bring down the cost of living, bring down inflation through our excise tax, negative excise tax policy. We essentially have a situation where um, many things rely on the price of oil. Many things rely on the price of oil. When your farmer has to run his tractor, that's going to depend on fuel. When your farmer has to bring his goods from his farm to the market, that's going to rely on the price of gasoline. All of these things are tied to the price of gasoline. And so the cost of even your good, even your greens that you buy at the market will be affected by the price of gas. So if you lower the price of gas, that will bring down the price of all of these locally produced goods that we're seeing these prices spiral out of control. And in fact, Mexico is estimating that instead of 9% inflation, they'll see 7.3% inflation as a result of their gas subsidy program. So there are other countries that are implementing this and expecting to see big changes in terms of the cost of living as a result of this. So this is a policy that has great scope to really improve things in the country and help in many areas. So one, it's at the pump directly, but two, it's in terms of the cost of so many other goods that are dependent upon oil prices. So we want to make sure that that is clear and that people kind of get a sense that this is a policy that has wide-ranging benefits. And so we see it as something that is pretty important if currently with these elevated prices, but also as these prices potentially go much higher. So these are the anxieties that we want to ease in the local economy. This is the way that we want to cushion the local economy through this difficult period and cushion the lives of average Guyanese, whether you're a higher earner, lower earner, medium earner. This is something that will have a benefit for everyone, but will also have a benefit for the broader economy by helping us to stay away from seeing a recession or a contraction or a slowdown in our local economy. Why would we want to allow ourselves to have a slowdown in the economy when we're making all of this money from a higher oil price? Rather, you'd want to ensure that we are able to ride out this period well because we are in a better position than many other countries. We are in a fortunate position. Let's act like we're in a fortunate position. How about that, viewers? Let's act like we are producing 340,000 barrels of oil a day. That's what we're producing. We're going to be producing this year, far more than even Trinidad at its peak. In fact, I'll show you a little graph, and then we'll jump over to our guest for the evening. So we've got a graph there that shows the impact of oil on inflation. There you go. That shows that gasoline is has one of the biggest impacts on inflation, is a big component of inflation. And so when we say that bringing down the price of gasoline will have an impact, you can see the size of that impact. That is a big impact. And so this is a policy that can have great benefits across the economy and really help a lot of people who are in need, but also the broader economy. It would be absolutely unacceptable for us to be hitting high oil prices and the economy start to contract and slow down and people start to lose their jobs, and us to hear the government say there's nothing that can be done. We just have to let this. This is not within the realm of reality, and I think that it is obvious that the government will have to take steps and that they will have to eat their words and come back on what they've said, because we have not contemplated higher oil prices for a prolonged period of time for a while, but that is a real threat. So the idea that you can have no plan is not a tenable idea, viewers. It's not a tenable idea. Viewers, we're going to bring on Mr. Kipwick Copeland now. We'll have a quick chat with him. You know, we like to keep it light and have a chat here on the Low Down. and he's going to talk a bit, give us a little bit of his perspective on how young people are faring with the cost of living. So let's bring on Mr. Copeland. Please. Hi, how are you doing? Are you good? Good to
I'm
have
good.
you
I'm
on.
good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Good to be here as well. I've been following, and we as young people, and of course, Elson, you're also a fairly young person. Dealing with the cost of living in Guyana is very stiff.
Yeah,
We always speak about young people being the majority, not only in Guyana but across the world. So anything that affects our economy would affect young people greatly across
absolutely.
the world itself. And Guyana, of course, we know we have a high level of unemployment, and
Yeah,
young people are in the majority in that category of being unemployed.
yeah,
And for persons who are working, they're crying out. From my interactions with young people, when people talking about the oil price, the gas price,
yeah.
the green price. I went into the border market the other day. The only drive-through market in the Caribbean, and $500 for a bunch of bora, and trust me, the
Mm,
small strand of bora for five hundred
yeah,
dollars, it's almost $600. So it's very very
yeah.
stiff when it comes to cost living in
That's
Guyana.
tough. That's
Yeah,
tough. Yeah,
it's affecting people across the country, and that is very clear. I don't
yeah,
think we speaking this is just like we're forming the facts. People have seen it themselves. Every time you go into a bus, every time you go into a taxi, every time you go to the especially Shell, you see that 265, two, you know,
yeah,
people are
yeah,
seeing that blatantly. So that's not something that we have to keep saying. People are seeing it for themselves. We're just
yeah,
reaffirming that things can be better.
yeah,
We a
yeah.
country that, as you mentioned earlier, we are oil producing country, and despite whatever's happening in today's society, whether it be wars, whatever's causing the
Yeah,
oil price to go up across the world, we can help subsidize the oil price in our country, the gas prices in our country, at least make
yeah,
things a bit
yeah.
better for our
Well,
citizens.
that's the government is acting like it's some big secret that we produce oil and are benefiting hugely from these higher oil prices. So that's to me an approach that makes whatever the opposite of sense is. That's what that approach may that approach makes by the government. And in fact, and you might be able to see this as well. If Guyana is a relatively small country, right? We don't have a big
True.
population, but we're producing a lot of barrels of oil, and we're going to be producing huge numbers as we go along, as many as 1.7 million barrels of oil in only a few years. Whereas the population is so small, that's more than 2 barrels of oil per day per person. I believe, if my math is correct. This is not like many other countries where they have a huge population and they produce a small amount of oil. Yeah, we have a huge amount of production coming our way, and so it wouldn't be probably wouldn't even notice much of the impact. Of course, it will notice some of it, but this is an ideal scenario for where we would want to bring down the cost of living through these types of gas subsidies. So I think you're head on. I think you're spot on in that regard, and I think that this is something that really, as you're seeing, will affect young people. The other thing you've mentioned, which I think is interesting, is the employment situation with young people. Of course, it's already a high unemployment rate, but often what happens is young people sometimes, because they're less experienced and so on, are the first people to be fired. When
That's
when
true.
things yeah when things get harder, the first to bear that brunt. So I'm glad that you're kind of sharing a youth's perspective. But let's try and enlighten things. So if you could give us a sense of where you're from, what your background is a bit, and we'll roll on into it.
Well, I'm from Georgetown, a little bit south from Belt Park. I'm youth activist. I've been doing it. I would say I've been youth activist about 12 years now. I was a former
Yeah.
regional
Wow.
councillor for Region RDC, number four,
Yeah.
dealing with young people as well. I've also branched off into civil society, doing some work, on
Sure.
reparations and youth empowerment,
Yeah.
etc. So I've been
Absolutely.
working along with young people for some while. Right now, represent the Ghanaian Student Movement. That's the youth arm, the PNCR. So
Yeah.
my work is basically focused on youth development,
Yeah.
pushing young people forward, of course, advocating for young people in general. Being that
Absolutely.
voice for those who are voiceless, and also trying to encourage others to, stand up for their rights. We have
Yeah.
to play our own part as citizens of this country, whether you hold a
Yeah.
political role, a role in the civil society, or even as an citizen itself. You have a role to play in today's society,
Yeah.
and not just leave it for somebody who holds a political office, which you place them there to do everything on your behalf, but hold them also accountable. And
Yeah.
we talk about things like prices, we talk about unemployment, we talk about how young people in general are moving forward in today's society, and it's very troubling that I don't see
Yeah.
much of a strategic plan coming
Yeah.
from the government
Sure.
itself. A strategic plan. We know we see a lot of cash grants given out and different things being given out, but I
Yeah.
don't see a generation of a plan to actually solve
Yeah.
the problem or actually nip some of the problems in the bud. You know,
Yeah.
um, so things are just being done scattered, and I don't
Yeah.
see much food coming out of it. And I'm seeing a lot of young people complaining, saying, you know what, doesn't matter
Yeah.
who's in power, we're left to the dogs. And that is very
Mm.
troubling. That in
Yeah.
2022, you know, Guyana has been one of the countries in the Caribbean, despite COVID-19, would have grown. The GDP did not
Yeah.
drop, and it's because of being an oil producing country. And
Yeah.
for
We've
that main
actually had.
reason,
Yeah, we've had one of the fastest growing economies in the world for about 3 years, isn't it? We've
correct,
been.
correct.
Yeah, we're doing well.
So the economy has grown, but yet still people don't understand where their pockets have grown. We still see a decrease in their salaries. We still see a decrease
Yeah.
in, the basic cost of living. So
Yeah.
it is troubling. And I think one of the main problems that young people are having is that they don't see how they're going to benefit. Even if they're not benefiting right now, there's no plan that they can look at and say, well, at least at this point in time, this is how it will benefit. We're just talking about infrastructure and this and that. Those things, of course, yes, those are basic developments. But people want to know
Yeah.
how their lives personally, how me as an individual, besides the
Yeah.
roads that I have to drive on. If I don't have a car, I wouldn't, a road wouldn't be much development for me. If I don't have
Yeah. Yeah.
scholarship, a university's enhancement wouldn't be much of a development
Yeah.
for me. So how do I, as a person, an
Yeah.
individual, will
Yeah.
profit from the
Yeah.
success of this country or being a
Yeah.
producing country? I'm not talking about handouts.
Mm.
How are you
Yeah.
putting structures or
We're not
programs or
talking about temporary measures. We want
yes,
a system in place so that people could get high paying jobs so that
mhm,
their lives can be transformed. Transformed. If you get a 100,000 or 50,000 or 25,000, I mean, that's for now, that's nice. But next month, what's the situation? Next
but
year, what's the situation?
what's 100,000? What's 100,000 or
Yeah.
50,000?
Yeah.
If you are a person who live in this society, you understand the value of 100,000 today.
Hmm.
$1,000 is like $100 back in some time. To be honest, five thousand
Yeah.
dollars is $1,000 in
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So a 100,000 is no money because when
Yeah.
you start to calculate for persons who are renting, if you calculate the rent, you
Yeah.
calculate the light bill, the water bill,
Yeah.
maybe just food just to survive. We talking about extras. If you go to KFC and get this in a box for 1,700, or go to Popeyes and get it for 1,600, you're not talking about that. That's the minimum. We
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
gone we done gone over 100,000 already, right? So
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
talk about subsidizing or making things more conducive for people to actually survive or live. We're
Yeah.
talking about how do we subsidize the things that are causing the high lifts of prices, which is gas. We're talking
Hmm.
about how do we actually compensate those who are below a certain wage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
about, of course,
That's
the
the
minimum
livable
wage.
income proposals that we've talked about. Livable income
Correct.
salary top up proposals. We want to make sure everyone is above the poverty line. We want to make
Mhm.
sure everyone is living comfortably as the country grows rapidly. Those are some of the things you're mentioning. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We talk
Yeah.
about price ceilings, making sure certain things doesn't reach a certain prices. We talking about, we talk about subsidy, giving people 150,000. I'm telling you, I'm not against people going collecting the money if it's sharing, but I'm saying a government should come with something more substantial, something more strategic to a particular gain or to a particular cause. These one-off things are just, for example, the temporary jobs. We have a temporary job, you collect a 40,000 at the end of the month. But at some point in time, as you say, it's a temporary job. You're going to lose that job. So, these are some of the issues that we have in Guyana, and people are talking about it, but people for some reason believe that there's nothing much that they can do about it. And I like to say to people, that's the wrong idea that we have. There's much that could be done about what's happening to this society, and we have to stand up against it. Citizens go out on every election day and we put our fingers in that ink and we vote for a new government or for a change or for new people, whether it be local government or general regional elections. But yet still, after that day, we sit back and say, well, let the politicians do what they have to do. And I'm against that. I think young people, even to senior people, should be continuously putting the politicians who placed in power to check. You know, they have to continue making sure that what the manifestos or the plans and the suggestions that you've given to the public when you're running for office, that you actually live up to those things. You know, give us timelines, show us that you're actually interested in actually the people's well-being of the country. Because even though we can talk about infrastructure, we're going to talk about how we can make better roads, better lighting, etc. The main resource of a country is human resource. So how are we bettering the human resource of this country? How are we bettering the lives of people? With all the infrastructure changes, how are we making it better for people to actually enjoy those infrastructures? You know, so I think there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think much more consultations has to be done with people in general to really understand the cries and the problems of people. We have too many persons who are speaking from the level of maybe the education or from exposure they had in other parts of the world, and not having to go on the ground and actually understand what people in Guyana are facing. You know, I don't like people making assumptions about my life. You know, you can see me, you could assume that you know all is well, but until you come down to my level and understand, have a talk with me, have a chat with me, understand exactly what really is the issue. You then really can't do anything for me. And I think that is the problem we have in Guyana. We have more persons who are more concerned about what they think should be right or what they think should be done and what really is the issues or the problems of Guyana. Young people have a lot of issues and they haven't been heard. You know, so there's a big, great disconnect to what's really happening when it comes to the policy level, what's happening at the government level, and what is actually happening on the ground when it comes to people's day-to-day living and you know how we move forward as people. So I'm not too sure. I see I'm on, but I'm not seeing Elson. Let me just check and see if he's still on. Tuned in. Um, this is the low. I don't want the low down. I don't want to hijack this program. Of course, we're talking about cost of living, high oil prices, gas prices, and how we, you know, some of the ideas coming from the People's National Congress reform and how we could actually, you know, bring this country to a more livable way. And I'm not too sure exactly what's the technical difficulty, as I said, and I would not hijack this show, but I believe Elson, I will try to get on to him to see if it was a technical. You know, Indiana are making out with the cost of living and in general. And we were talking a lot of things about, you know, the unemployment rate. We're talking about the high cost of living. We're talking about the gas, and you know that's one of the main things, of course, that is hiking up prices in the country. I know persons who were tuning in long before and persons who are now tuning in. Thus, gas prices alone. Everything has to come from somewhere. It has to be if we travel by road, by boat, or by plane. And of course, these three main areas have to use gas, and the gas prices are high. You know, anybody who drives a car, who does not drive a car, is very clear on the idea of gas in Guyana, the hiking of gas in this country. So, you know, we have not seen, and as an individual, you know, take away my titles, we have not seen a strategic plan towards making the cost of living in this country more livable for people. We've been seeing a lot of cash grants. We've seen things like temporary jobs. We've seen many things put out there, but nothing to a particular end or to a particular cost is saying that this particular initiative aims to lower the cost of living or lower gases or make it more better for persons who are earning this amount of wages, persons who are renting this amount of paying this amount of money for renting these kind of things. We've not seen such a plan. And it is sad that at this point in time, after the last elections, and that was, very devastating time, we still look at elections as one that has much discrepancies in it. But we have not seen much um, strategic plans put forward from this government when it comes to the oil prices, right? So let's talk about a little bit about youth development, because we could talk about oil price, we could talk about the hikes of the cost of living, and that's a continuous question. That's something that we don't have to really say because people are experiencing it every way. But youth development is something that is very important. We talk about young people being the future, and I believe that we can't be the future, or we can't make a better future if we don't start operating now. As a youth advocate, I advocate for self-realization in young people. I believe young people should understand their abilities, their skills, their potential, and they should do whatever it takes to enhance those abilities, those skills, to be better citizens in today's society. And what we see is a lack of role models. We see a lack of programs that are set towards actually understanding young people. I see many programs. I see programs that deals with, you know, um, different areas, but I hardly see programs coming to young people to actually understand young people. We always try to categorize, and when you're growing up as a young person, a lot of things come to mind. We see people who are doctors, lawyers, pastors, your police officer, etc. And these particular workforces or particular careers are highlighted. And we just try to section off our young people into one, which one best fits. But I think one of the problems that we have is that we don't have much innovation in Guyana. When one person opens a fish shop, everybody wants to open a fish shop. When one person opens a barbecue place, everybody wants to open a barbecue places, right? Um, so it's important that we as young people understand ourselves and understand we have to be more innovative in our approach to today's society, and talking about politics also, which is very, very, very important. Young people, a lot of young people, I heard this, and we have Elson now coming back on the program. I'll just finish off this point, Elson. I was just giving a point about young people
Yeah,
and
thank you,
politics,
thank you.
right? Young people in politics, a lot of young people like to say politics, I don't want to play a part in politics because politics is for old people. And I'm telling you, today we have more young people in this country and in the world than older folks. And if you only allow older folks to make the decisions on the young people, who we can see there's a big disconnect because the age difference already. We're allowing society to go in one direction, not for youth. Even though the older folks might try to do something that will help the young people, they're not young. So it's important for us as young people to play a part in politics, play a part in every part of society, whether it be politics, whether it be healthcare, whether it be sport, whatever it is that this country has to offer. Young people should have a stake, a position, a place, or a voice in it. But Elson, you can take back your show. I don't want to hijack
Yeah,
your
so
little
viewers,
segment here.
apologies for that. We had some technical difficulties, so we're just gonna wrap up. But I want to close off on a point that I think will hopefully help to tie things together, which is that we hear that Guyana needs as much as 160,000 workers, and that the oil and gas industry is going to call for a lot of workers, and that there's additional things connected to that. But a lot of these workers will be young people. A lot of
Correct.
these workers that can make up this workforce that has these high paying jobs, that's going to be Guyana's youth. The PNCR has got plans in place and is continuing to build on those plans to ensure that young people are able to benefit from these types of high paying jobs, whether it's ensuring that young people finish high school, whether it's ensuring that they have access to higher education, don't have to pay for University of Guyana, have appropriate stipends. The idea being that this is not a one off cash grant party. This is a party that's looking to transform your lives, move you into the future, and end the punishment times that a lot of Guyanese, unfortunately,
Right.
have been enduring, especially when it comes to things like cost of living. So, on that note, viewers, again, thank you for your patience. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. Mr. Copeland, it's good to have you on.
My
Appreciate.
pleasure.
Thank you for holding the fort for a few minutes there, folks. We've
No,
got
no problem.
talented young people in the PNCR who can think on their feet, and I'm glad that Mr. Copeland was with me tonight to just demonstrate some of that. And I'm glad he was able to share some views that I think help to show that Guyana's young people, number one, are paying attention to the issues, and number two, really should be involved as we continue to see this country develop. Thank you for coming on with us, Kibre, and viewers. Thank you very much. This has been the lowdown, and we will catch you on Tuesday when we do in the news, and then we'll catch you for our Saturday night segment next Saturday night. Kibre, you have a good rest of the Saturday night.
Thank you, Elson.
Thank you for watching our program. See you right back here, same place, same time. And remember, hold the line of battle, comrades. Our victory is sure.